Hi there, everybody, and a really warm welcome to you today. I'm really pleased to be here and spend this next hour time with you. So today's session is on ideation, and it's the first success session for the Big Idea Creative Spark competition. Really excited to see what ideas we're going to create over the next few months. So today we're going to be looking at what is ideation and who should use it. We're also going to look at some techniques and tips that you can actually take away with you to develop some ideas. And if you've already got an idea, we're also going to look at how you can actually refine it. And then we're going to have some time at the end for some question and answers. Great, so going on to me, so I'm really pleased to be here today. My name is Natasha Triai, and I help students and graduates at London Met University set up businesses. I really love what I do. Fantastic to be able to work with students and help you be as successful as possible. And I really believe that through entrepreneurship, you can create your full potential. That's the journey that I went on. I set up a social enterprise about 9 years ago or so in Scotland. And then since then, I've been working with hundreds of young people, helping to develop commercial skills and to get their ideas off the ground. So a couple of other little things on me. I love musicals as well. And Queen of Clean. I'm trying to eat vegan and no meat and healthy. So this has been going on for a year now, and sometimes I'm good at it and sometimes I'm not so good at it. But really pleased to be here with you today and share with you how you can come up with business ideas. So a couple of things before we get started, looking at how you can actually get the best out of this session. Move on to the next slide. So really, if you're able to, try and find a quiet space where you're less likely to be distracted or disturbed, so you can really focus for this next hour. I'll always have some water nearby. I always do. It just means you don't need to leave. You can really be focused. Also have an open mind, and I would say throughout all the sessions that you attend, make sure you've got an open mind. We're going to be teaching you perhaps new frameworks or tools, and get ready to be stuck in from the very first get-go. And ask lots of questions. We are here today and then the sessions following to give you advice, to help you. So take advantage of that. There's no question that's right or wrong or too big or too small. You can, I would recommend if you think about the question you want to ask and write it down, because when you do this, it becomes a lot clearer. And so with clearer questions, we will have hopefully some clearer answers. Don't leave the room today wondering why. Please ask us. So first off, what I would like you to do is I'm going to give you 60 seconds, and I would like you, wherever you are right now, if you don't have a pen and paper, do it on your phone or a laptop. I'm going to time 60 seconds, and I'd like you to write down as many business ideas as possible. So I'm going to set the timer for 60 seconds, and if you just take a little moment, maybe sometimes what helps me is looking around the place that you're in, your environment, having a look out the window. What do you see? What could be a business idea there? And we're just going to take a few minutes. We're going to take a few seconds. We're not going to take a few minutes to come up with as many ideas as possible. So from the get-go, let's get stuck in. So you've got about 30 seconds left here. Have a little look around. Where am I right now? I'm in my kitchen, so looking at, got some fake flowers and some dead flowers here. So I might actually think, well, a lot of others spending time at home right now. Maybe I could create some sort of subscription model where people are buying flowers. They're going to make them at home. They're going to do floral arrangements at home. I've also got some. Yeah, I've got some nut milk here. I actually noticed where I am, there's only one brand of nut milk, and I'm not too sure I'm very keen on it, so I might explore something like this to do with one of the things I go through is eating vegan. So let's see here. I'm going to give you 10 more seconds, as many different ideas as possible. That's this here. Okay, so just reflect yourself. How did you find that? And what I'm hoping to do today is to help give you some actual tools so you can understand how you can come up with an idea. So we'll go into the next slide here. I would say that starting a business is it's life-changing, really exciting for you at the start of your journey. Hopefully you're going to become an entrepreneur. Really so exciting, and maybe it's like entry into the real world. Doesn't matter if you've not had experience in setting up a business before. For me, I believe that it's all about kind of creating your own destiny, creating paths for you. I absolutely love that. Finding the right idea this is the challenging task, and I know there'll be a mixture of you here today that have not got ideas and some that do. Sometimes it can be the result of something spontaneous, or sometimes it's more accidental, but I promise there is a method behind the madness, and that's what I'm going to share with you today. Okay, so before we move on to some techniques, we'll go to the next slide. We're going to look at what is ideation. And, broadly speaking, it can be defined as the process involved in generating ideas, including gathering information on ideas, collecting thoughts about the ideas. Ideation is used to make improvements to existing products or services, in addition to creating these new ideas and new concepts. So you'll see from this, it can be used both internally within an organisation, but also externally. And when it's used internally, I would say businesses will tend to gather the ideas from employees, people that are actually experiencing what they're looking to make better. And looking at it externally, I would say that, and this is something I'm going to come on to later, but it's really looking at who are you targeting, who is your customer, because the customers know the product or the service better than anyone, because they are the ones that use it. So they've got knowledge, the customers have got knowledge that you won't have. So most external ideation efforts will be directed in this way. And so you'll see from these two examples, it's actually very useful to speak to people. So I want you to actually remember this going forwards. And then looking at who it's for, well, ideation is primarily for anybody in the process of making an impact towards a better solution. And problems and solutions are going to be coming up in the next couple of weeks. But basically, we're looking at, your ideas are solutions to problems. So perhaps today you are an aspiring business owner. Maybe you want to start a small business. You don't have any ideas. And this is where the brainstorming comes in, the first technique. I'm going to go through this shortly, but just a fantastic way to get creative juices flowing and creating a very comfortable space to come up with lots of new ideas. And after a good brainstorming session, you are going to be well on your way to starting a profitable business. So let's look at why ideation. And there are actually 4 areas on why it can help you in starting a business, or more generally the internal aspect of it as well. So I would say that ideation generates ideas to improve products or services. So it's not just about doing it at the beginning, it's kind of constantly. It's about generating ideas for future products or services. We're at the start of this journey today, but as we go on, we might want to add products or services. And then actually moving on to more established ideas of businesses, ideation can create customer engagement and it can help customer loyalty. So these are for later on, but I want you to be aware and remember this. We're going to focus right now on future products or services. What's going to be the next big thing? Is it going to be you that launches this? How exciting. And how do you know it's going to be good? How do you know it's going to be a success? Is there a demand for it? So we are going to be, not today, but I want you to remember the customers. The customers have got the knowledge. Listening to the customers, they will share exactly how you need to bring your idea alive and make it better. So really, customers and speaking to people is key. So before we move on to some techniques, I'm going to quickly go through 5 golden rules of tips so that you've got this in your mind as we go through the techniques. We'll talk about it later on, but I just want to set you some context right now. First of all, I would say there are absolutely no bad ideas, and you never want to overthink things. You want them to come to you organically. And quantity is better than quality. So in this stage, you want to come up with as many as possible so we can whittle down. It's very hard to have a few ideas and make them grow into something. Whereas if you've got many different ideas, you can eliminate. And this is what it is. So there's no bad ideas. The wackier sometimes, the better. And the more you can get into a creative headspace, the better. So quantity over quality at this point. Document everything. So I use a lot of post-it notes, as you will see behind me, and I usually will have things that come to me. You want to just document everything, stick it down, get it out of your mind, stick it down, return to it later. The focus is on the speed, it's about the quality. And I would say using other people to actually input for stronger ideas, using encouragement. If you were to do this in a setting with some of your friends or with family, whoever is helping you in this session, you actually want to encourage, even if you think, oh my gosh, this is not a good idea at all. That's not what you want to say. You want to really promote more ideas, because if you've got something wacky, you can turn that into something that we can make an idea with. But if you've got a lot of bland ideas, that's very hard to create it into something exciting. So enrich with other people and encourage others. Keep an open mind, as I said, with all our sessions. And we really want a non-judgmental attitude, so promoting encouragement. And I would also say, for me, when I've done brainstorming before, it's really useful to do this outside your usual context. So every day I sit here, I would actually probably move rooms, go to a space outside, and really put myself in a different situation so that my brain is going to think differently. And yeah, I would say the focusing on the quantity over the quality, that encourages in itself creativity and freedom. And we want to promote more adventurous ideas. This is what leads to innovation. So really, to encourage you is to, the goal of ideation, create as many ideas as possible. Don't think about it. And I would say to you in this beginning, we're going to focus more on this next week, but to give you some context for right now, I want you to understand what a problem is, what a problem statement is, because this is really important. Usually when I meet entrepreneurs, people are very solution focused, sometimes not even solution focused, sometimes it doesn't make sense at all. What you're going to do as an entrepreneur is look at problems and how we solve these problems and how we articulate these problems. If you can find a problem that's a big pain point for somebody, then you can come in with a solution. We're going to do more of this in next week's session, but it's important for you today to understand. So what is a problem statement? Really, it identifies the gap between the current state, like the problem, and then the desired state, which can be thought of as the goal of the product or the process. And I would say in the ideation context, if you can think of the user problem as an unmet need, and what you're going to be doing is designing a solution that meets this need. You want to satisfy the user, you make sure that you've got a pleasant experience. So really focus here on framing what this problem is, making it a clear description of the issue, and keeping the focus on the user at all times. It can keep problem statements can take on various formats. We'll explore next week. But for example, for right now, I want to just share with you a way that you can actually focus on a problem is from the user's perspective. You might say, I'm a young working professional, I'm trying to eat healthily, but I struggle because I work long hours, so I don't have time to go to the grocery shop and then to prepare, and it makes me feel bad about myself. So that's from the customer's perspective. Now, if we flip that from a user research perspective, so say I was coming up with the business idea, maybe I want to frame it and say, business working professionals need easy, time-efficient ways to eat healthily because they often work long hours and therefore they don't have time to shop and do healthy meal preparation. So you can see these statements are a little bit different, but focusing on the user. Now, as we go through these techniques for ideation, I want you to really focus on the problems, who are experiencing these problems. And we're going to do more on that next week now. So looking at techniques for ideation. So I would say, let's start off with brainstorming. So brainstorming, if you've not heard of this before, this is a really creative process where a person or a group might sit down with a particular problem in mind. And then from that, they might spontaneously create solutions to this problem. And it can be as simple as making lists, writing down lists, or you might want to actually create a roadmap and get a piece of large paper, start with the problem here and create different roadmaps coming out of it. And being as creative as possible in these different techniques, I would really suggest for you to just get the creative juices going. I would usually use some post-it notes and I'd put them on a wall instead of using them on the table. And it's usually in the beginning stages of a project. And with brainstorming, the goal is to have as many ideas as possible. And this will help you really define what the problem is and all the possible creative solutions. So try and think more, not everybody is creative minded, but thinking creatively and actually understanding how you can get your mind out of this usual way that it thinks, using a whiteboard, or maybe you can use some online software, a pen and paper, but really not using your laptop, being sort of creative with how you're doing it, I think for me promotes the creative juices to flow. So that's brainstorming. I'm going to do more on that shortly. Brainwriting is alternative to brainstorming, and instead of verbally sharing the ideas, you would write your idea on. You do it with a group of individuals. You will write your idea on down on a piece of paper, and then you pass it on. And then the next person will read that idea and then add their own on the end of it. And once you go around everybody here, the process will continue until each person has contributed. So if you're sitting with 4 people, you want first of all to write down your idea. You pass it on to the next person, to the next. You've got 4 altogether, and then all the ideas are collected, and you will have a discussion as a group. So this is really effective, I think, in having the discussions afterwards. Sometimes this will lead you to something new. We're looking for innovations, we're looking for creativity here. So that is brainwriting. I think you can move the slide on. Actually, I think you can move the slides on a few. Perfect. And then if we go on to body storming, we've got a lot of these different words here. Body storming. So this is like a physical ideation method. So during a body storm, what you want to do is create a physical experience that represents the problem that you're trying to solve. So this might be done using paper or a digital prototype, or I would say what would be effective is a real person, although you might not be able to do it at that right now in COVID times, but it's really creating something, role-playing almost, so that you then are experiencing the problem firsthand. It's quite often that when I will meet an entrepreneur that has an idea, or an individual that's got a new business idea, sometimes they have not actually experienced the problem. And for you to actually have empathy and step into that person's shoes, the one that's going to experience the problem, you do this firsthand, it makes it easier for you to imagine all the potential solutions to the problems that you're addressing, rather than thinking this through in your head. So that's body storming. So next, let's go on to mind mapping. So mind mapping is one that works really well for me because I'm a visual learner. It's a visual ideation techniques that really encourages you to draw connections between different sets of ideas or information. So what you would do with this approach is you'd start by writing down a key word in the middle of the page. I usually do a bubble around it, and I use different colours of pens. And then I would say if you are going to use this for ideation, you want to relate this to the problem statement that I went over a few minutes ago. So you want to look at your problem statement and actually draw inspiration from what's around you. Look at newspaper topics, look at online, look at what's trending online, and you've got this problem statement here, and you want to actually solve that, and you would want to draw this bubble and have other bubbles coming off it using different colours. And what you want to surround the world with all the word in the middle with all these different ideas that come to mind, depicting connections, linking it with curves, with lines, making sure that ideas are connected. And this then would result in a visual map. And for me, this is, if you're a visual learner, for me, this is a great way of learning, because I'm really, I'm a visual learner, so it's very effective in coming up with new ideas. So I would recommend that for you if you also learn in that way. So then let's look at the last one I'm going to do here is reverse thinking. So this is another popular ideation technique, and this is what you would to do this one, you would flip the problem on its head. So you want to do the opposite. So it's kind of like could be an upside down challenge. For example, if the original question is how might we encourage teenagers to go to gym, that could be reversed, it could be flipped, and we could be saying then, how can we make the gym as appealing as possible for teenagers? So this is quite fun, I would say, this one. And I think you can also draw a lot of inspiration from the anti-solutions that you come up with. It makes you think about an idea from a really different perspective. So flipping it on its head, the upside down. So the question might also be, how might we make our online courses more accessible? Your ideas to do with doing courses online. How can we make it more accessible? So that might be changed to, how can we make it as difficult as possible for users to take up our online courses? It just forces you to think in a really, really different way. The solutions you come up with for the reverse challenge then could help you really envision what the opposite might be. And then that is going to lead you closer to the solution that you need that's going to be most effective. So I've shared with you some ideation techniques that you can lead the session and do yourself and do with some of your friends. I would even recommend you doing online, and try mixing them up as well. Try maybe 2 or 3 of them and see what happens with each of them and see where you find your success. So I'm going to go on now to 3 techniques for effective brainstorming. So that was the first technique that I did. And let's just break this down a little bit. I like this technique, so I'm going to just share exactly how you can make it effective, and then going through, I'm going to break it down into different steps that you can do to really get the most from this technique. So as I said at the beginning, go for quantity. While you're brainstorming, you might feel yourself wanting to focus on a really small number of ideas. Naturally, as humans, that's what we do. But really try and resist this urge. You need to get yourself focused, and in this environment, you want to come up with as many ideas as possible, unlocking new ventures, avenues of thought. You want to really resist from going back to your old idea, and by doing quantity over the quality, you then are releasing yourself for an even better one than you had originally had, I promise you. And secondly, I said this before, don't judge ideas. Like creativity can become severely dampened by inhibitions. When you're worried about something, you don't want you then actually constrict yourself. You want to be free flowing. You want to explore your imagination. As humans, we are really creative. And, through time, we kind of get boxed in, and we have to find where our creativity is. I think for me, getting in a space of creativity, I actually listen to a particular genre of music that I never listen to. I listen to a lot of music, but there's one for me that gets me into the zone, and it really changes for me. So think about how you can actually be creative, and really refraining from judgment is so important. Save the judgments for later. We want to be critical at a later stage, but not in ideation. We want quantity. So think to yourself, I'm going to be free, I'm going to let myself go here, and I'm going to come up with as many wacky ideas as possible. I promise you, if you can have the shift in your mindset, it's going to be successful for you. And then on the back of that, I would say definitely have a group of people. So I know that we can't really meet up in real life right now, but we've seen so much success in doing it online. Set up a video chat with yourself and really dedicate some time to exploring with at least one other person, Everybody has got different minds. We've all had different experiences. We've all got different perspectives. So actually inviting people into your space of creativity means that we've got more ideas to explore because we've got these different perspectives. So I would say connecting even with family or friends. It doesn't need to be somebody that you're going to set up a business with, but just somebody that you can take on this initial journey with you. So then moving on now to the 6 steps of brainstorming. Let's break this down. Just think perfect way to generate really good business ideas. And I would say even using this further on, like really good for if you've got an established company, and also really effective at this beginning stage right now as well. It avoids putting limitations on restraints on your thoughts. If you want to start a new business, but you're not sure of which model to use, of the techniques I've gone through, I would say if these brainstorming steps, start off with this and see what happens, and really understand that it's going to unlock your imagination for a successful business idea. So first of all, and I would say to those of you actually that have got ideas already, begin to listen to, it's not the techniques I've gone through actually might be effective for you to develop your idea. You've got your problem statements, you know exactly what your keywords are going to be. I'll just go back to number one there, if that's possible on the slides. Go back to number one, thank you. So really, yeah, you now want to, those of you with business ideas, really begin to apply these next steps as well, because just because you've got an idea doesn't mean that it's going to be perfect. So we want to make it as best possible we can. So first of all, it's about brainstorming your purpose. So when brainstorming ideas for a business, a great thing, a great point to start at is finding that thing that's going to keep you pushing forwards. And this could be called your why. Why are you doing this? Why is this important? When I started off my business idea, I was in a session and I hadn't done anything. I hadn't done my pilot project. I just had this idea and I was pushed to say, but why? So what? Said my idea. Well, so what? So what? And the more you can say, so what? If you can say, so what 7 times why you're doing this, then you now begin to understand why. You know, you really need to begin a lot of justification with yourself. So I would say there's a few different ways you can actually find your purpose, your business's purpose. Firstly, what do you enjoy doing? What gives you the most fulfillment? What gives you most enjoyment, satisfaction? Because if you don't take enjoyment out of this, you're not going to enjoy running it as a business. So look at what do you actually enjoy doing, what makes you feel alive and excited. And then look at what you're good at doing as well in life and in work. Don't just look in a professional context, look in a personal context as well. And ideally, what your business should do is take advantage of the skills that you've already developed. And that could be maybe something you're doing at university, like coding, or it could be something even within your personal skill set, like listening to others. And you might have experience in an industry, but you might not. Do you know something, is there a niche industry that you actually know about for more reason? You might really understand that some people are creating products already that you like, that you enjoy. Well, how can you actually get more involved? But really looking at the skills that you have, what you're good at, what you enjoy are really, really important. Lastly, I would ask yourself, how do you want to serve the world? What do you want to be doing? And the best way to understand this is a bit of reflection that not everybody always does, but really important, especially in the start of this journey of setting up such a life-changing moment in your life, setting up a business. How do you want to serve the world? So ask really yourself, what are the pain points? What are pain points that you are aware of? What are unmet needs? And how can you solve this? This is you wanting to serve the world and what you're passionate about. Really, what is inside do you feel your calling is? Who will you be serving? How will you be serving them? Knowing your target audience, your target market is going to further help you define this purpose. But knowing for yourself and being self-aware from the beginning is really, really important. And once you've brainstormed what your purpose is, I would say constantly ask yourself why. Why doesn't this certain product exist? Why is this task not being done in a more efficient way? Why hasn't this product or service within a specific space? Why hasn't that evolved in a while? Start asking questions continually. So this whole beginning stage is about exploration. The exploration does not stop at all. So secondly, I would say with brainstorming, let your mind wander, let it go. Give yourself some room to dream, put yourself in this creative mindset. So as I said already, you might want to go to a space that you're not used to, different space completely. Somewhere from in nature, somewhere for me is something that makes me, it just clears my mind of a lot that's going on. And so I can begin to feel a little bit more creative when I begin spending time in nature. This will then allow your mind to wander because you've decluttered it. So spending a few minutes just getting outside and wiping your head of all the other tasks and worries and pressures that we have all got to deal with on a daily basis. Getting outside and just really focusing on yourself and doing nothing in nature will give you a new slate in your mind, and you'll then be able to sketch some business ideas on top of it. And I would say if you're finding that difficult, if you're finding it hard to come out of your mind or the place where you think a lot, practice, don't give up at all. So I'll spend a day a week, maybe spend 20 minutes or so trying to do this, and then trying to brainstorm in different spaces and see what works best for you. What works for me might not work for you, but being creative and doing things really differently is so important. And if you realize that you actually rarely find yourself thinking best, you need to have a change in your routine. So I think that for me recently, I've been listening to a new app called Clubhouse, and that's been mixing up what I'm doing and what I'm listening to, and I find it's giving a new release of energy. So maybe just having these little tweaks in your routine can then help to put you in your best thinking space. So then moving on to the third one is research. So once you've got a list of good ideas, of those of you that have got an idea, then it's time to do some research and to really hone in and focus on the ideas. So if you're just starting out in your industry, which many of you might be because you are university students, you might not know what questions to ask about business. So that's fine. Go and do some basic research on your industry, Google searches, go online, take out books, read journals, really get to know as much as possible about the field that you're going to enter. Preparing yourself with knowledge is so important at this point. And yeah, when people start out and you've got a business idea, you've got to wear many different hats. And actually being an industry expert, of course, you don't know this at the beginning, but you're going to have to start developing, and research will get you there. Next, I'm going to go on to is filtering your ideas. So once you have collected some solid ideas and you've done your research and you are still figuring out, okay, which is my one idea so I can start creating this into real life, into reality, well, we want to just stretch that a little bit. And there's 3 common filters that successful entrepreneurs will use to hone in on what their top priorities are. And this is time, money, and resources. So those of you with an idea that you feel like this is what you're going to focus on, that this is the opportunity I've spotted, I want you to evaluate the idea based on the priorities. And then those of you with several ideas, evaluate all the ideas with these priorities. And you want to ask questions like, how hard is it going to be to make this product or to deliver this service? How hard? How much is it going to cost? You're going to have to do a bit of research on this. How much is it going to cost to make? How many manufacturers will it take? Doing a bit of research into this. How much is it going to cost to ship if you're going to have to ship the product? And actually, how big a team of people are you going to need in order to bring this to life? Is it just going to be yourself? It's often not. It's often not at all. And successful businesses usually see success because they're in a team. So how many do you need, really? And this will begin to really understand what creative ideas are going to be feasible for you. Be realistic, be really, really honest with yourself. And I would say when it comes to looking at team, like looking at what your strengths are, going back to the skills and what you have developed in yourself, and then going on to, you know, realistically, can I deliver on this? If you can't, no problem. Go to another idea. It's not going to work out for you, and that's fine. That's fine, completely fine. Okay, so going on to number 5 is naming your business. So it might seem bizarre to name so early in the process, but there's a reason that a name can help you early on, because when you name something, it now makes it become real. You can change the name later on. This is not a problem, but giving your name, a business, a name right from the beginning will mean that you can actually bring your idea life and energy. So even if you're sitting there with 10 ideas, but you then whittle down to 4 ideas, give each of those ideas a business name so that they each have got legs to stand on, and that you're looking at them like and interacting with them like they're real things. And yeah, I mean, this doesn't need a lot of thought to do. This is actually, you can Google online business name generator. I would suggest do that. Don't spend long on it at all, but you want to bring them to life, and it really makes the relationship you're going to have with these ideas so much different. So name them. So number 6, the final one here, is develop your idea a bit before you share it. So communication, validation, part of human nature. And when you come up with an idea that you love, you may feel the need to share it right away. You're so excited about it, you love this idea, you're attached to it, you want to share it straight away. But sharing your idea too soon might cause a bit of problems. Now, I don't want to encourage you to not share it at all, because that's a problem. You want to share your ideas, but what I want you to do is to understand it a bit more clearly before then you share it. So yeah, you really can do this again through the research, looking online. You can speak to a few potential customers that you think might be engaging with this product or this service, but really you want to be keeping it to yourself and researching before you share it too much, because you won't be able to understand it. If you can't understand it, how will others be able to understand it? So you need to actually understand what it is you're doing. And I suppose to that as well as looking at, well, what might pitfalls be, where are the disadvantages of this, where are the questions that people might be asking. So really the potential of success in these beginning stages might be at the start, you actually developing the idea a little bit before you then go on to share it. But I will really stress, you want to share it. I meet a lot of people that say, I don't want to share my idea, I'm really protective over it. If you develop your idea like this, it's not going to work. I can guarantee you it's not going to develop and grow. You need others to input to it. So don't spend too long on this stage, but important that you understand it before you can articulate it. So then moving on to the next slide, yeah, for those of you that have got an idea here, to say to you, once other people in this session have gone away and you've developed your idea, come back. Well, how do you know your idea is worth pursuing? You know, business ideas are all around us. And for me, I would just say it's a matter of finding the pain point that a customer segment has and coming up with a solution. And those of you that have got an idea here today, I want you to understand, are you solving a problem? Because a lot of the time I meet people and they do not understand the problem that they are solving. How big is this pain point? How big is the problem that I'm solving? The bigger the pain point, the bigger the idea. And I would say that Google Trends can really help with this. Keyword searches over, you can type in Google Trends, you can type in a word, and it shows you how many times that word has been searched by country, by time. It's really interesting to see, because the people have got a pain point. Where do we go? We go to the internet to solve it. So this is a really good tool that you can use. And I'd say to you, yeah, let your ideas come naturally. Don't force them. Don't you don't want them to. You want to keep it simple. You don't want to overthink things. You want to have a single pain point that you want to solve for your customer. So understanding that pain point explicitly and understanding how you're solving it for your customer is really, really important. So keeping this so simple. And I would say communicating the idea in less than 15 seconds. You've got to keep working on that. You know, when I ask somebody to explain their idea, sometimes they go on for minutes and minutes and minutes. And that's not okay. I've switched off and I don't get it. Keeping it simple. You've got to keep working on it and you've got to keep drilling it down. But once you understand this, then other people will be able to understand this. So actually, how I'd recommend you doing this is saying, we solve, state your problem for, who's the people, by doing your solution. So you can look at these different variables to understand communicating what your business does and who it does it for and how it's going to accomplish that. Simple, simple, simple. We don't want to get into a lot of detail at all. So I'd also suggest to you, once you've done a bit of idea development, is getting feedback from your networks. So start having initial conversations once you've honed in on a simple way to communicate your idea. This might be asking basic questions, feedback, and what they think. And if you're unable to have conversations with family and friends, you are probably going to be unable to have conversations with your customer. So I wouldn't use family and friends in the same way I would use a customer, because family and friends will be biased. But I would say to you that if you use them as a testing ground on how you're going to communicate and ask questions to your customer. It's really worthwhile for you to practice this a few times before going out and doing the real thing with actually a potential customer. So that leads on to who's going to pay for this, and in these questions, you know, at the end of the day, if your business isn't making money, then it's not a business. So you really need to understand if people are going to pay for your idea. So initial conversations as well, people ask, how much would you pay for this product? And, you know, I think that it's an open-ended question, so that's really good, but it's not a very effective question. It's probably a common mistake that I would say that people use. You want to rephrase that and say, what's the maximum you would pay for this product? Because then that gives you an idea of, well, where's your top price going to be? How far can you actually push it? And really, at the end of the day, we need to have people paying for the ideas, or else you're not going to have a business there at all. So those of you that have got an idea, understanding, is somebody going to pay for it? How much are they going to pay? What's the maximum? Because that's what you want as well. So yeah, I would say that for today, you want to go away, and you really want to, we're going to share the recording with you afterwards. I've done a very much a whistle-stop tour of sharing how you might come up with business ideas. I would say if you have an idea, apply the techniques that I've shared with you today to make it even better. What you should have is a pool of new ideas. And then you want to evaluate the ideas, looking at what's feasible, what's going to be worthwhile taking forward. And then eventually, after this process, that's when you can begin to create prototypes and test them on real users. It's a journey, and breaking it down into these steps is going to make it easier for you. It's going to give you the biggest chance of success in the beginning. So what I want you from you today is to really go away, practice these techniques with more than yourself, and the variety of different ones, and really understand then what's going to be the best one to take forward. It's a really exciting part of setting up a business, and you know, it's being as creative as possible gets you out of your usual thinking. So what I want to do now is it's 1:45, so I want to make sure that we've got time for some questions at the end, and maybe we can get them in the chat box if you have any questions. Yeah. So last 15 minutes. I hope you don't feel too overwhelmed with all that, but that you feel excited, and we should have some questions coming up. I just realised I've got to go to the doc here. Let's see. Any questions on ideation? Let's see, I'm just opening up the list here. It would be great to hear if some of you have got an idea, if you're going to go away and actually implement some of the techniques that you have seen today. Okay, perfect. It's just opening up now. The laptop is being a little bit slow and I've been working it so hard.
Hi, Natasha. This is Sandra. I might jump in to read the questions for you.
Yeah, it's just loading up still right now. That would be wonderful.
So we have the first question. Hello from the Ukraine. Thank you for the session. Can you advise some tools to investigate interest in proposals and ideas? So I guess how can you investigate really the opportunity that your idea is trying to address?
Investigating opportunity. Well, I suppose investigating opportunity is all really looking at what's the opportunity, like what's your customer? So and how big a market is that? So I suppose I would suggest, first of all, in really understanding, going back to the problem, what is the problem? Who is the customer? How are you solving this problem? Now, I would suggest, to see how big this idea is going to be, is using Google Trends. This is an online tool that you can use. You can type it in, and you can type in these keywords. So if you, I don't know what your problem or who your customer is, but if you can type in exactly what your the industry is, or understanding more about what people are asking, you can find here if there's been trends, and hopefully you want to see that more people have been interested in this. But doing so much research online, speaking to people, I mean, this is all a process at the beginning. So I'm looking at, I've actually got the questions up now, Sandra, thanks. But I would say, before you do any of this, is to look at the techniques that I've shared with you today. And from that, you know, I want you to really spend a good few hours in doing these techniques, the brainstorming, the body storming, the mind mapping. We're going to share this with you afterwards so you can revisit it. But being creative with your space is where I want you to focus. Does your idea need to be perfect at the start? Absolutely not at all. Looking at ideas as is kind of breathing objects, I suppose. When I've worked with people that have started businesses and they have tried to keep it perfect at the start, they don't grow. They do not grow. You want it to be, you think of it as that you're an investigator. You're putting your hat on, and it's a journey. You're refining it as you go along. And that's why I say you need to share your idea with people, because if you don't do that, then you're not going to have it contributed to. So absolutely not at all. Can we try sell our non-existing product just for the evaluation? Yes, you could run some tests to gauge and see the interest. Absolutely, I would suggest doing that. Yes. How to choose between ideas? Well, this is when, you know, usually I will be doing these sessions interactive. It's the first time I've kind of spoken to people. So well done for being the first audience that you're going to go away and do these activities. But really what you want to do, I know that you're all part of Creative Spark, so speak with your institutions. So once you've got your ideas, there might be people in your countries that you can speak to. But what I would say is, going back to, what are you passionate about? What are your skills? Actually, are people going to pay for this? Understanding how to choose the ideas based on these reasons is going to help you understand what is the best one. Does our idea have to never be attempted before? Okay, so it can be a brand new concept. It can be something brand new. I would say sometimes, though, having some competition is quite good, to be honest, because it shows there's demand there already. What you can then do is look at your competition, look at what they're doing well, what they're not doing so well, and then fill the gaps. If you remember Facebook, Facebook had lots of competition. We had MySpace before, we had Bebo, which was from years ago, but they were this very similar concept to Facebook. And then Facebook, so maybe some of you won't remember this, because I'm a little bit older, this is going back some years now, but Facebook wasn't first of its kind at all. So it can be brand new, but actually I would say that if there is other people in that space, then it's a good indication to look at them and look at what they're doing well, what they're not doing so well, and look at what they're not doing so well and implement that into your positive. If you already have an idea and a business plan, but you can't find a problem with a customer. So I would actually say to that, and this might be a little bit disheartening, but if you have a business plan and you have an idea, but you don't have a key problem with the customer, then you don't have a business. If you think about the last product or service that you bought, you paid money for, it was solving a problem for you. Completely. So the last thing I got was here. I've got some perfume here, which I've just bought. And I suppose my problem is, like, I want to smell nice, and I've got a lot of different brands that I can use and I can choose from. But I bought this because I want to smell nice. That was my problem. I can go into a little bit more detail on that, but basically that's what it was. If you don't have a problem, you don't have a solution, and people don't buy products or services for the sake of it. They buy solutions to their problems. So I would say to you, maybe with somebody in your partner institution that you can work with on this. There's going to be lots of activities going on in your country, but I would say that I don't want you to waste your time. We need to, first of all, go to problems. Come next week as well, because we're looking at problems and solutions next week. But I would say to you, yeah, that you need to kind of go back to the drawing board with that. But we're here to help you. Are there any other questions at all? I hope you've got some practical tools here that you'll be able to go and implement. It would be great if you could do that before next week, so that you can come to the problem solution session armed with actually having some idea, have gone through the process of coming up with a few ideas and then whistling it down to one. Are there any other? Okay. We have our ideas. I'm sure if we don't have any devices. I mean, I'm trying to understand what you mean by that, because if you're looking at this session, do you have a device? Maybe you don't have a device, but how would you look at this session without a device? I would say be creative as possible. You know, I know where I am in other places across the world right now, there's different restrictions because of the pandemic. But I know where I am right now, if I wanted to do if I wanted to have a nut milk business that I have here, I would be able to go to a health store and socially distance from outside with a mask on and speak to people. So I would say that speaking to people is central to your idea coming to life. So if you don't have a device, if you know what the restrictions are in your area, speak to people. But I also don't understand if you can watch a session if you don't have a device. Hopefully I've answered that for you. How to find team members, great question. And I would say having a team is so important when you are coming up with an idea, because we've seen so many times that you've got more chance of being successful if you're in a team of people. Different people have got different strengths, think differently. So yes, really important to find team members and actually fulfill those spots on where you perhaps have got weaknesses. So where you find team members, lots of different places, I suppose. If I was a university student at my university, I would suggest coming along to one of the programs that we do. We do programs, and I'm sure that you'll meet people on the Creative Spark program as well, but doing searches for different skills, looking at different Facebook groups. In London, there's another few groups that I've joined for creative individuals, looking at startup spaces. These are also really good places for you to get feedback on your ideas. Lots of people want to help each other. Clubhouse, this app called Clubhouse, which is basically looking for, it's really successful entrepreneurs helping people starting out on their journey. And I would really recommend for you to use that. Instagram, look at people that have got different talents, you know, just reaching out, putting yourself out there. First of all, I would say understand what your skill set is, where your strengths lie, and then you can begin to identify where you might need help. But I suppose it's a very broad question. But yeah, for me, I would tell my students to come to some of our programs. And I'm sure at your institutions, you've got some fantastic activities where you can meet other people as well. Fantastic. Any last questions before we end the session today? Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you've understood my Scottish accent okay. I'm aware I get a little bit excited sometimes, a little bit too fast. If there's no more questions, we will wrap up.
Thank you so much, Natasha. That was fantastic. We don't have any more questions, but if you do have questions, you can always respond to the emails that I send you from the competition and ask directly. So also make sure that you check the email invitations that I've sent you for the next sessions. There is a calendar link to the next sessions, so you can save them in your diary and make sure that you don't miss any of them. So thank you very much, everyone, for attending, and we will see you next Wednesday at the same time on the same link. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Have a great week. See you.